Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, everyone. A very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us on this Sunday morning. We're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 7, Text 45. Brahmana Uchu. Tvam kritastvam havistvam hutasha swayam. Tvam hi mantra samidharva patrani cha. Tvam sadasyartvijo dampati devata. Agnihotram swada soma ajyam pashu. Synonyms. Brahmana, the Brahmanas, Uchu said, Tvam, you, Kratu, sacrifice, Tvam, you, Havi, offering of clarified butter, Tvam, you, Huta Ashaha, fire, Swayam, personified, Tvam, you, He, for, Mantra, the Vedic hymns, Samit Darba Patrani, the fuel, the kusa grass, and the sacrificial pots. Cha, and Tvam, you, Sadasya, the members of the assembly. Ritvijaha, the priest. Dampati, the chief person of the sacrifice, and his wife. Devata, demigods. Agnihotram, the sacred fire ceremony. Swadha, the offering of the forefathers. Soma, the Soma plant. Ajyam, the clarified butter. Pashu, the sacrificial animal. Translation. The Brahmana said, Dear Lord, you are sacrifice personified. You are the fire, you are the chanting of Vedic hymns by which the sacrifice is conducted. You are the fuel, you are the flame, you are the kusha grass, you are the sacrificial pots, you are the priests who perform the yajna. You are the demigods headed by Indra, and you are the sacrificial animal. Everything that is sacrificed is you or your energy. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In this statement, Lord Vishnu's all-pervasiveness is partially explained. It is said in the Vishnu Purana that as a fire situated in one place emanates its heat and illumination everywhere, so whatever we see within the material or spiritual worlds is nothing but a manifestation of different energies emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Brahmana statement is that Lord Vishnu is everything. The fire, the offering, the clarified butter, the utensils, the place of sacrifice, and the kusha. He is everything. It is confirmed herein that the performance of Sankirta Yajna in this age is as good as all other yajnas in all other ages. Let me read it again. It is confirmed herein that the performance of Sankirta Yajna in this age meaning Kali Yuga, is as good as all other yajnas in all other ages. If one performs Sankirta Yajna by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, there is no need to arrange elaborate paraphernalia for the prescribed sacrificial ceremonies recommended in the Vedas. In the chant of the holy names Hare and Krishna, Hare means the energy of energy of Krishna, and Krishna is the Vishnu Tattva. Combined together, they are everything. In this age, persons are harassed by the influence of Kali Yuga and cannot arrange for all the requisite paraphernalia for performing sacrifice as recommended in the Vedas. But if one simply chants Hare Krishna, it is to be understood that he is performing all kinds of yajna because there is nothing within our vision except Hare, the energy of Krishna, and Krishna. There is no difference between Krishna and his energies. Thus, since everything is a manifestation of his energy, it is to be understood that everything is Krishna. One simply has to accept everything in Krishna consciousness, and he is a liberated person. One should not misunderstand that because everything is Krishna, Krishna has no personal identity. Krishna is so full that in spite of keeping himself separate from everything by his energy, he is everything. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9th chapter. He is spread throughout the creation as everything, but still he is not everything. The philosophy recommended by Lord Chaitanya is that he is simultaneously one and different. It's a pretty loaded purport. It has a lot of points, and I will attempt to get through, elaboration on some of these to the best of my ability. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyev cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you once again for joining us on this Sunday morning. You could be doing so many other things, so many different things, but to be here with us is really, really appreciated, and thank you again. Hari Hari. So, just to set the context, we've been reading from the fourth canto and chapter 7 now for several days. And text 45 occurs after Lord Vishnu appears in the sacrificial arena of Daksha. As we know, and as we've been reading, the sacrifice has been devastated by the offense against Lord Shiva. And now all the parties, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, the sages and brahmanas, they're all offering wonderful prayers to the Lord. And so the brahmanas are speaking this verse. Tvam kratus tvam havis tvam hutasha swayam tvam hi mantra samidharba patrani cha tvam sadasyar tvijo dampati devata agnihotram svada soma ajam pashu. So the brahmanas said, and again I'm reading the translation here, you are the sacrifice. You are the sacrifice. The offering, the fire, the mantras, the ingredients, the priests, the demigods, and the sacrificial animal. Everything connected with sacrifice is you. So wonderful, wonderful verse. Just like the previous verse as well, where the Vidyadharas were offering such glorification, such beautiful prayers to Lord Vishnu. And here the Brahmanas are offering their glorification as well. Now, if you step back and we hear the word yajna, the first thing that comes to our mind is, this grand sacrificial fire. You have priests chanting hymns and mantras. There's offerings of ghee, swaha, swaha, swaha. So, but what if this verse is teaching us something that is much deeper? That yajna is not merely a ceremony, that we perform occasionally, but the very framework of a devotee's life. What if our thoughts, our words, our relationships, and service can all become an offering to the Supreme Lord? I mean, that would completely transform and change our perspective about what a yajna is all about. So today, again, I'm going to attempt and let's together explore how the Bhagavatam transforms our understanding of what a ritual, what a sacrifice is really is. It's not the ritual in the ritualistic sense, but ritual more in the sense of an offering, a service, right? Keeping Krishna in the center and not us. So the deepest meaning of this verse is that all aspects of worship culminate in Bhagavan. That's very, very important, right? Everything is leading up to the offering in terms of offering to whom? To Lord Vishnu, to Krishna. So the Brahmana is not merely saying that Vishnu is the recipient. He is not just the Yajna Purusha in the in the literal sense, but they're saying he is the Yajamana, he is the mantra, he is the ingredients, he is the fire, he is the kusha grass, he is the priest, he is the devatas receiving the offerings, and he is the ultimate result, right? So even in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I am the Vedic sacrifice. Aham kratur aham yajna, he says, right? And he also says, Brahmarpanam Brahma Hai. So everything in sacrifice is connected with the Supreme. Everything. The ingredients and the mantras, everything that is put together, everything is connected with the Supreme. And thus it becomes spiritualized. In fact, my spiritual master reminds us as well, many a time I've heard him say, everything that we offer, even during a morning arti, evening arti, and so on, everything, the paraphernalia, everything is spiritualized. It's not just a plate, it's not just a bell, it's not just a spoon, but everything that is being offered in arti is now spiritualized. And that is why it is so very important that we have the right sankalpa, we have the right, frame of mind when we are actually making that offering to the Lord. And where we're going with this is, we need to make every moment of our life an offering to the Lord. And I keep repeating this theme because that seems to be the one that is really, really, coming through in all of these verses. And especially in this verse where the Brahmanas are offering everything in, as an offering to Lord Vishnu himself. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, and the last text to chapter 5, Bhoktaram Tesham, Yajna Tapasham, Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, Suhrdam Sarva Bhuteshu, or Suhrdam Sarva Bhutanam, Natvamam Shantam Richiti. In that verse also, Krishna is saying very, very clearly that he is the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and the ultimate benefactor of all living entities. So it is very important for us that we need to be cognizant of what we're trying to do, and being in the present is very, very important. And we'll get to that as well, because that is also an important aspect of this verse, being in the present. And what does that mean, being in that present, being in the present? So, on this point that I'm making right now is that a devotee is not seeing these as separate or isolated objects, but he's seeing Krishna or Krishna's presence behind every element of this service. Now, when we think about Daksha's folly, the mistake that he made, he became absorbed during the sacrifice, but that was completely very ritualistic. He completely forgot about the purpose as to why he was performing this sacrifice. He was looking at the correctness of the ritual. He was thinking of social prestige. He was thinking about Vedic formalities. But the Brahmanas are very clearly, you know, making the statement saying that Daksha, you thought the yajna belonged to you. In reality, everything connected with the sacrifice belongs to Vishnu, to Krishna. But that was not the frame of mind. The frame of mind that Daksha was putting himself in the center. Daksha was looking at, the social prestige. Hey, I'm performing this super auspicious, magnanimous kind of yajna that is going to give me even more prestige socially. He had the who's who sitting there in the audience, right? So Bhaktivinoda Thakur also emphasizes that these external religious acts, they are meaningless when they are not applied in service to Krishna, when they are not made as an offering to Krishna, right? Only when they are connected to bhakti, only when they are connected, when they're done with bhakti and they're connected to Vishnu, only then does it actually have the benefits. And it's not like that, the devotee is trying to please himself, but the devotee is ultimately trying to please Krishna. That is the ultimate purpose. So the beauty of Krishna consciousness, again, this is something that keeps coming back again and again and again and again. And in every page of the Srimad Bhagavatam, reading the purpose of Srila Prabhupada, this is the beauty of Krishna consciousness. Unlike many other faiths, unlike even, so-called Hinduism, right, where people get so caught up in these pujas, these rituals, these samskaras, you know, people taking pictures, you will see that, right? People taking pictures while the sacrifice is happening. This used to happen in my place too. Never really understood the implications and the lack of respect, the lack of being in the present in terms of understanding the purpose behind these rituals. And so people, I'm just giving you an example, where people are taking pictures during the yajna itself. And that in itself it's a terrible mistake to make because they're thinking about themselves in a sense, right? The intent is, yes, we are doing something auspicious, but the true intent of why that is becoming auspicious or why it should be auspicious is lost. So in the moment, they're thinking about picture frames, for instance, in this example. Whereas Krishna consciousness is so beautiful that all it takes is a transformation of the consciousness, realigning our consciousness, being in the present, doing it for the pleasure of Krishna. Then there is a congruence between what is being done externally and what is happening internally within our hearts. When that congruence, when that connection is strong, we can actually feel it because we're pleasing Krishna. When Krishna is pleased, you immediately get that feedback. For us, for most of us, that may be a very transient experience, but nevertheless, it is something that we can touch, even if it is a micro, nano drop of a drop. That in itself gives us, throughout the body, you feel there's a change, there is a difference. You feel so satisfied, you feel so happy that it is, that you're able to do this. You're being given the opportunity to do this. So that has to be something that we need to constantly remind ourselves. We have to be conscious. By being conscious and being in the moment, and understanding the purpose of prayer, understanding the purpose of our offerings, our sacrifices, which is to please Krishna, that is perfection. That is being able to realize Krishna in everything that we do. We're not there. It's a long journey. We are extremely far away from doing that, I understand, right? For all of us, or for most of us, it's a very long journey. Yesterday, there was a question by one of the participants in the lecture, which, and he was saying, he was asking, I'm trying to do this, but I'm not getting the taste. And it feels intimidating because you see, oh my goodness, I have no taste. And to get to that point, I have to do so much. Can I do it? Maybe not. And so, there's a sense of frustration, sense of hopelessness. But as Yamuna Prabhu said yesterday, take the medicine, practice, practice, practice. You need to take it. We are in a stage where there is much to do, but there is also the opportunity given to us to practice on a daily basis, on a moment by moment basis. Keep training that mind, keep training that mind. That fickle mind. Bhaktivinoda Thakur would say, take a slipper and hit yourself every time the mind pulls you off in a different direction, away from Krishna. Bring it back. And that's what we need to do. We need to consciously bring ourselves back. That is Krishna consciousness. We're trying to apply ourselves in service, in thought, in remembrance, in action to remember Krishna and to please Krishna. And that's all it takes, right? It's the transformation of consciousness. Easier said than done, but that's the simple, basic truth, simple, basic fact. So for a neophyte, they're looking at these material objects, right? So in the yajna, they're looking at the kusha grass, they're looking at the ghee, they're looking at the brass or the copper utensils, they're looking at the fruits, the offerings, they're looking at the tilak on people's faces, they're looking at all of these various things, the priests, the mantras, whereas a devotee in the right frame of mind is seeing Krishna's energy, he's seeing Krishna's arrangement, he's seeing Krishna's servants, and ultimately he is actually experiencing Krishna's mercy. That's the beauty, right? So it's bhakti that's converting these otherwise material components or elements into something that is completely spiritual. So there is a recurring theme in the Srimad Bhagavatam as we read chapter after chapter, page after page. There's a recurring theme that when we are focused on the externalities, that is only superficial. When anything is done without devotion, then it becomes spiritually lifeless. It becomes very mundane. It becomes very dull, boring. After a while, you're not into it. And that also leads to more anarthas, right? So the inclination, the proclivity, or for bad things to be done, actions that we take, thoughts that become actions, they all tend to lead in a direction that are away from Krishna. We don't want to go into that kind of a rabbit hole. Instead, if we apply ourselves just by being in the present, just by being cognizant of what we're trying to do, why we're doing it, what the purpose is, then it changes the entire atmosphere. It changes our mindset. It calms our mind down as well. If you look at it, a lot of times the mind is very agitated. We get caught up in, the whole program, for instance. For instance, we are setting up, just remember, many a time we've been through this, right? Where we're setting up for a yajna, sacrifice, a home program. We get so caught up in receiving the guests, This needs to happen, that needs to happen, everything needs to fall in place. So we're so caught up in the whole task that we are literally, putting all that effort with very little or very few moments dedicated to pleasing Krishna. Intent is there, but that remembrance is completely lost, right? So we're not doing it. We get agitated and the mind puts us in further agitation. But reminding ourselves, making it a habit, it should become second nature for us to be able to do it with the cognizance that we're doing this for Krishna. That calms the mind down, gives it puts it in the right perspective. I mean, I amaze at the number of times I've been in conversations with my spiritual master and the clarity of thought that he has, even in the most troubling moments. Driving him to the home program, when he was the GBC for the entire GBC, and during his tenure even as a GBC for North America, there were such troubling calls that would be coming in, and the clarity with which he could, just very nicely, very appropriately, spiritually backed, he would make, certain decisions or say certain things which would put the other side, on track. And that clarity of mind comes from the spiritual strength that one is, one has constantly, practiced and developed over the years. So it is a journey. It is a journey. It's not like a switch that we can turn on and off. We all know that, right? But it is also important for us to know that that journey has a lot of ups and downs. It's not just going to be a straight line. There's going to be some ups, some downs, sometimes more downs before it goes up. But the idea is never to give up. Never to give up. Abhyasa yoga yuktana. We have to keep practicing and practicing and practicing and practicing. And, two things Guru Maharaj says: effort and mercy. That effort has to be there regardless, no expectation, but effort has to be there from our side. And that causeless mercy from Krishna, when Krishna sees the devotee struggling so hard, sincerely, with devotion, with the objective of pleasing him, he's also giving us that mercy. He's showering us with that mercy, and he's pulling us towards him. So that will happen. Not like a vending machine where we put a coin in and out comes the product, but more as a loving exchange. Sometimes Krishna is mischievous. He wants to test you a little more. He wants to see how you respond, how he wants to see how you react. He wants to see what you're keeping to yourself. He's playing games with you sometimes, but he is, from his heart, he's giving us his love, his affection, his shelter, his protection. And that's what we need to remember, no matter what. It may look like we're heading down into the trenches, down into a ravine, but Krishna is there. Krishna is taking care of, even during that time, he's taking care of us. He is only going to let you go so far. And after that, he's going to pick you up. So we also know, so we're saying that when there is no proper perspective and we're just looking at these individual material elements as material elements, right? And we're focusing on the externalities, then spiritual offering, being in that spiritual mood becomes lifeless. It becomes very boring and mundane. But the important part is also that Krishna will not accept anything. When you're in that, we are in that spirit of looking at it very ritualistically, right? Step one, step two, step three, we're doing the mantras and we're doing swaham, swahan. In between, I'm yawning. In between, I'm looking at, what is happening around us, right? When we're getting lost, the mind is going in 10 different directions. even Krishna is not going to be pleased. The sacrifice is to please Krishna, right? But that at that moment, we're not even thinking about Krishna. So why would Krishna be there? We need to be calling out to Krishna and saying, Krishna, please come, accept what I'm offering. Please, in spite of all my deficiencies, Krishna, you are so kind that you're willing to come and be here, and accept what I'm offering. It may be full of contamination, but I'm offering this to you. But at that particular moment, if I'm not even thinking about Krishna, not even remembering Krishna, why would Krishna be there? No. Why would Krishna be there? And again, remember, Krishna reciprocates the way, to the extent that we surrender to Krishna, ye yata mam prapadyante, right? And that verse, Krishna is very clearly saying that the extent to which you surrender to me, I will reciprocate. And over and above, we do get causeless mercy, which we don't even value. Many a time, there are things that happen which we don't even think twice as to how and why it happened. We just take it for granted in day-to-day life. Krishna has given us his mercy. He gives us his causeless mercy several times a day. If we actually sit back and think about what all has happened during the day, if you just put a record of that and note it down and actually introspect in terms of what's happened during the day, there are many things that will come up as purely causeless mercy that's coming down from Krishna. We don't even think about it, leave alone reciprocating, leave alone being grateful. Now, the converse is also very true, right? So, when we offer something with love and devotion, Krishna says, I will accept it, right? Even if it's just a leaf, even if it is just some water, you may have nothing in the home to offer. Even if you offer some water to the Lordships, do it with devotion, give it with love, offer it with love. He is so willing to accept. Yesterday, Guru Maharaj was quoting this verse during his lecture, which struck a chord in my heart as well. Savai pumsham paro dharmo yato dharmo dokshaje, right, from the Srimad Bhagavatam, from the first canto, second chapter. And Srila Prabhupada says, you can execute your your occupational duties, very, very, very nicely, down to the T. But if you do not develop your love for God, then it is simply useless. Shramayeva kevalam. It's useless. Yeah, you're going through the motions, but it's not going to yield any benefit. So the destruction of Daksha's sacrifice, it demonstrates that ritual separated from devotion eventually collapses. It is meaningless. It does also have its consequences in certain extreme cases, because it's not just Daksha's fixation on social prestige and trying to get this whole yajna done, but there were other factors also that led up to the complete destruction of that yajna in the first place, right? And what is that? One of the big, big, big ones that comes up is to do with respect. And again, this is something that His Holiness Rompad Maharaj has been talking about. He's been giving extensive lectures on the topic of respect. Respect. And he's pointed us to very specific references in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 3. We've read through it, in the last few months, in fact, where Kapiladev is giving instructions on devotional service to his mother, Devahuti. Right? He says, and the verse that he was referring to was text 21:1 through 29 in the third canto, where Kapila Dev is saying, Aham Sarveshu Bhuteshu, right? And let me read that to you. Aham Sarveshu Bhuteshu Bhutmatma Vashishta Sada Tam Avagnaya Mam Martya Kurute Cha Vidambanam. So the important words here that Maharaj was talking about were to do with avignaya, right? Where there is disregard or, um, you know, looking away, not being respectful. And the other important word was vidambanam. The vidambanam word is basically talking about imitation. And in the translation, basically, it clarified as well to me is basically where a person who's performing deity worship, for instance, but he's not able to see, the same person is not able to see the presence of the super soul in other living entities. That's a very serious form of vidambanam, or as Prabhupada defines it, as imitation. Now, if you take a moment and you reflect on Daksha's behavior, right? So he was performing this, like I said, most auspicious, grand sacrifice in the presence of the most celebrated personalities, right? In the universe, not just this earthly planet, but in the universe, including Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and all the wonderful, sages. But he failed to offer respect to Lord Shiva. To Lord Shiva. Not only did he not offer respect, but he actually insulted him publicly without any restriction, without any restraint. There was an interesting pastime that, again, quoting from yesterday, Guru Maharaj was giving a lecture, and he recalled the pastime of the Pandavas making their way into the Himalayas, and there was a stream flowing through, and there was a lotus that actually, was in the water and coming down, the stream of water there. When Draupadi noticed that, and she really loved it. It was a very, very special lotus, 1,000 petal lotus, fragrant, very, very beautiful to look at. So she requested the brothers to go fetch that lotus. She said, there must be more from where this lotus has come from. Can you please go find that, lotus and bring me a few? I would love to offer this to Yudhishthira, your eldest brother. And again, keep in mind, the Pandavas, the brothers were not envious. Why? Because they're constantly keeping Krishna in the center. There is no envy there, right? It's not like, oh, why is she offering to my brother and not to me, kind of a thing. No, that was never the thought. But they spontaneously offered. And Bhima was the one who put his hand up and said, I'm going. I will go get it. And off he went ahead of, the brothers as they were making their journey through the Himalayas during their exile. And there along the way, Bhima came across this monkey along the path that was blocking the path. And so he respectfully asked the monkey, please, can you give me some way? I need to go and get ahead. The monkey seemed to be like, okay, you can try. Why don't you lift my tail, and then you can be on your way. You can get some space. So Bhima, being Bhima, went to lift the tail of this monkey, but no matter what he did, he couldn't lift it. It was not possible. And he was completely surprised. And that's when he realized that this was no ordinary monkey that was blocking his path. And lo and behold, he found out that it was Hanuman, his brother. They had the same father, Vayu. But the important message or takeaway for, at least in this context, is that he offered his respect. He didn't step over Hanuman to, make his way, but instead he respectfully requested Hanuman to move out of the way. And until that happened, he didn't proceed. Why? Because Bhima also saw the super soul in Hanuman, even as he still thought he was still just a monkey, not knowing that he was Hanuman. But even then, Bhima was only cognizant of the fact that there is the super soul in every living entity. And so he didn't cross over the super soul in that respect. So respect is something that is so very, very, very important. The person may be exhibiting very bad behaviors. I'm not talking about Hanuman, I'm talking about in general in our day-to-day life. We may come across certain situations where, the person is being arrogant or being very, very ruthless or being very painful to deal with. But there is still the presence of the super soul. So even in the Bible, it says, hate the sin, not the sinner. Right? Similarly, our scriptures also tell us the super soul is never to be forgotten. There is the super soul in every living entity. So the behavior may be wrong, but nevertheless, the super soul is still present. Take Dhritarashtra's, Yudhishthira's example when it came to his dealings with Dhritarashtra. He could have been completely against Dhritarashtra. He could have smashed him, especially, after knowing that Dhritarashtra did not say yes nor no, but he implicitly allowed Duryodhana to carry out his deeds. And those deeds were not pious or anything by any means, right? He tried to set the whole house on fire. He got the Pandavas out into the worst of the situations, right? He just wanted to see them die, perish, completely vanish from the face of this earth. That was Duryodhana's plan. And Dhritarashtra never stopped Duryodhana per se, right? So Yudhishthira knew that. But in spite of that, even after the battle of Kurukshetra, Yudhishthira brought Dhritarashtra and his wife into his own palace and took care of them. And every morning he would go walk up to their rooms and offer his respectful obeisances at their feet every single morning. And one morning, when he awoke and when he, went to offer his respects, they were gone. That's a complete different class altogether, where Vidura comes back from his pilgrimage, finds out that these two are sitting in the home of the people that he was trying to get rid of completely. And so he gives them a shouting. He shouts, he literally, chastises Dhritarashtra and tells him, "What's wrong with you? Don't you have some self-esteem? After having done everything that you've done, and you're shamelessly sitting, living off of Maharaj Yudhishthira's, nicety, his gracefulness. His, well-being. Not well-being, but his, attitude, his respect for you, and you're living off of him. How could you do this?" And so he takes them all away from the palace that very same day. That's when Dhritarashtra really feels terrible about himself. And so he says, "Yeah, I got to get out of here. I'm doing something that is so terrible." Okay, that's a long story, a beautiful pastime. But, coming back to offering respect. So even though, a person may be exhibiting bad behaviors, one should recognize. And again, it takes a lot. I know it is very, very difficult, especially when you're in the moment. You're being, if you are the victim, especially, it becomes very difficult for us to be able to deal with that. We're not able to separate, the super soul being in the living entity from, the attributes and, the misdeeds of that particular person in that situation. We just want to get back at them, we just want to get back at them. And that's really the wrong thing to do. That's one of the things that as a devotee we need to inculcate, we need to practice, to exert that vision, to be able to recognize that there is the super soul in every living entity, good or bad from the outside, but the super soul is there. And if it is being done, we need to take lessons to ourselves, for ourselves, to see, okay, maybe there was a lesson in that. The reason why that person, behaved the way he behaved towards me, perhaps there is a takeaway from that. Perhaps there is a lesson for me to learn from that. And so we need to internalize it in that sense and see how we could improve and how Krishna is showing mercy even in that, for us to be able to, exercise greater patience, perhaps greater tolerance. Maybe it was some improvement that we need to, within ourselves that we needed to do, which we never thought about. Or maybe we had offended somebody else in the same manner and we never realized. We never thought about it. And we just moved on. And so it's coming back to us. And this time, since we are the recipients, we are actually experiencing it. Maharaj also spoke about an example where there was, this devotee, one of Prabhupada's disciples actually. When Prabhupada had come in, there were several disciples in the room. They all, offered their obeisances, but there was this one disciple who just stood, who didn't bend, didn't, offer his respects. It's not just the externality, but even the internal, right? Like I said, if there is no congruence, it doesn't make any sense between the external and internal, then it doesn't make any sense. So even if we tend to be very, very externally perfect, if that internal sentiment or the internal intent is missing, it's meaningless. So in this case, this disciple, not only internally, but even externally, he just stood like a stone, like a column. And Srila Prabhupada observed, he noticed, he didn't chastise him, but he told his, confidentially, he told his servant, he said, look, his downfall has begun. And sure enough, shortly thereafter, that disciple fell by the wayside and he was gone. So that is a form of avigya called Guru Avignaya. So we have to be very, very cognizant, very careful about these kinds of things. Now, this purport is also, this particular verse is also talking about how Krishna, in spite of being the energetic, and he is also, the energies are a part of him as well. They're inseparable, right? So he is all of these various things that are happening, right? So, for instance, the fire in the yajna, it's not Krishna's identity per se, but it is his energy, right? The mantras that are recited by the Brahmanas, they're not Krishna in identity. But again, the mantra is not different from Krishna himself because it carries his potency. So everything is being used in relationship to Krishna. This again goes back to what Rupa Goswami has set in principle for us, right? Which is using everything in the service of Krishna. Now, in this sense, it is also, very important for us to understand that Krishna and his energies are inseparable, right? So there is no impersonalism there, right? Where we're saying, okay, these are, this is the ghee, this is the grass, and so on, right? The ingredients, and this is Krishna. Neither are we saying that they are, there's no dualism involved as well. No, there's no duality there, right? Instead, it is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, Achintya Beda Beda Tattva, right? It is the simultaneous oneness and the difference. There is Krishna and his energies, they are inseparable. Just like the example that's given to us always is about, the sunlight, the sun and the sunshine. The rays of the sun are non different from the sun, but they have their own identity at the same time, right? They're inseparable. In other words, the sunshine, the rays of sunshine are coming from the sun, right? And at the same time, the sun is not losing its identity. The sun remains the sun. It doesn't become the sunshine, it doesn't become the rays, right? So they maintain their identities, but at the same time, they're inseparable. So everything is connected to Krishna, everything is connected to Vishnu. If we understand that everything in this material creation is coming from a source, right? All of this external energy is coming from the energetic, right? The source of energy, and that is Krishna. So if they're inseparable, we need to understand that this is coming from Krishna, and therefore it is very important for us to align ourselves in terms of our offering to Krishna, right? And similarly, we also need to understand that just because all of this energy is being spent, and again, there is an interesting argument there also, just because all of this energy is being spent one way or the other, right? Krishna is gradually reducing in terms of the quantity of energy that he has. No, that never happens, right? Krishna remains Krishna. There is infinite energy coming from that source of energy. That's never going to diminish by any means. Now, in physics, in the first law of thermodynamics, for instance, there is the law of conservation of energy, right? That energy cannot be created nor destroyed. But then there is so much energy here, not only in this planet, but in this universe, and not only in this universe, but in the entire universe of the universes. So if energy cannot be created or destroyed, how could energy be there in the first place? Have the scientists even thought through that? That's just a sidebar, but something for us to think about and say, yeah, I mean, how does this first law of thermodynamics even hold if it's contradicting itself? It's saying, hey, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. Okay, nor destroyed, okay, because the energy is being converted from one form to another. Okay, kinetic energy is being converted into thermal energy with friction and so on. I mean, we can make all those arguments. But to start with, where is this energy coming from if it cannot be created? So that is coming from Krishna. And our scriptures are very clearly explaining that. But the scientists prefer not to look at that, right? They have the blinders on. And since they cannot explain what they cannot explain, they try to confine it to a much more controlled environment, box it so that they can deal with it. Because human tendency is that we cannot deal with uncertainty. Everything has to be wrapped up and closed. Otherwise, we get into a mood of agitation. We get terribly agitated. But for the devotee, it's very plain and simple. It's like, hey, can you see it? It's coming from Krishna. All the energy is coming from Krishna. Everything is coming from Krishna. And so the moment we know that, we're at ease automatically because we know for sure, and this is scripturally based, Krishna himself is saying, Aham sarveshu bhuteshu. He's saying, so there is no reason for us to be in any form of uncertainty, ambiguity, or any form of agitation. Even Vishwanath Chakravarti in his commentary of the Bhagavatam, his mood is constantly, pointing to the basic fact that everything, all powers originate from Bhagavan, from Krishna. The demigods are getting their powers also from Krishna. And sacrifices, coming to this particular context, even the sacrifice derive meaning only from Krishna. So one cannot separate any of this from the source, in this case being Krishna. Okay. Now, as we read this text, and we're getting close to the end of this lecture here, you'll notice that, every item the Brahmanas is specifying, the kushakras, the mantras, the vessels, the priests, the demigods, the sacrificial animal. I mean, they could have just simply said, everything is you, Krishna, Vishnu, Krishna, this everything is you. But instead of saying that, they actually, line item by line item, they actually itemized it for a specific reason, right? So the Bhagavatam is teaching us Sambandha Gyan as well, because the conditioned soul is dividing these into categories, like, this is material, this is sacred, right? This is spiritual, this is, it's a very secular concept. It's like what we do, most of us, in the mornings, we do our puja, we do our arti, we close the doors, we all get out of our puja room, right? And then we're into work or doing whatever, and everything is forgotten, right? Till we come back in the evening, and then again we have a shower, and then we do our deity worship, for instance. But importantly, there is a very secular feeling that, this is time for puja, this is time for my work, this is time for my exercise, this is time for my game, whatever it is, right? This is time for my homework. So we've kind of divide up our entire day into very secular areas of tasks, right? So the Brahmanas in this case are very clearly, they're dismantling that. They're basically saying that every single thing which may appear to be very materially isolated, like the grass or the ghee or the mantras, they're actually, in effect, all of that is you. They're connected with you. So everything that is being used is being engaged in Krishna's service, right? Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe, right? Everything is used in relationship to Krishna. And that's what spiritualizes this entire, and that's what makes it so much more auspicious in terms of the sacrifice. Then the sacrifice really has meaning when we are in that spirit, bringing it all together. And then Prabhupada makes a very, very finally, getting to this, where Prabhupada is making this beautiful, beautiful point in this verse, where he's talking about how in Kali Yuga, we don't have to go through these elaborate practices of performing this yajna and that yajna and this and that. That's why even in Krishna consciousness, even in the practice of Krishna consciousness, we have some very, very simple but very effective yajnas. And in this yuga, the prescribed yajna is the Sankirta yajna, right? Sankirtana. And Krishna says, and Prabhupada has been highlighting that, and more so in this verse, he's very, very clearly, unambiguously, he's telling us that is the simplest and the most effective yajna that one can perform. Chanting of the holy names. And it just requires a sense of sincerity, a sense of being in the present, a sense of devotion, a sense of love for Krishna, not just chanting it mechanically, but chanting the holy name in a way that is actually coming from the heart. Simple, but at the same time, it's something that we need to practice because we have so much conditioning going on. The taste is missing completely, right? Because of all the millions and millions and millions and millions of lifetimes of baggage that we're bringing with ourselves. So, what Daksha was trying to attempt through this grand sacrifice, the devotee can do it with a simple chanting of the holy name. Just think about it. It's a tremendous contrast. And Srila Prabhupada, and the acharyas and the scriptures are making it so simple and clear for us that in this Kali Yuga, that's all that it takes. The Lord is very clearly declaring that, see, Lord Shiva is mine, the priests are mine, the mantras are mine, the sacrifice is mine, all the demigods are mine, they all belong to me, right? So when we start to see everything in relationship to Krishna, then envy disappears. You see, Daksha was very envious. Why is Lord Shiva getting all of this respect when I am not? Or I should be getting more, right? There's envy, which leads to lack of respect, which leads to consequences. He had his head cut off. He was killed. The whole sacrifice was devastated, destroyed, right? The whole sense of auspiciousness was gone. The whole mood was gone. Everybody was disturbed. Everybody there in the audience was completely disturbed. It didn't help anybody. So when we see these distinctions separate from the Lord, from the Supreme, it is very important. This is a point that we all should note. When we start to see these things separately in a very secular manner, right? That this is material and that is spiritual and this and this and this, then we're seeing that separate from the Lord, from the Supreme. And when we see that separate from the Supreme is when pride, envy, and all of the base instincts in us come out. There is hurt, there is ego, there is harsh words being spoken, there are bad things being done, there are bad behaviors being demonstrated. All of these things happen because we're not able to see the supreme or the super soul in each of these things. When we start to see that separately, separate from the Lord, that's when all of these bad things happen. And that's what happened with Daksha as well. There was envy in his heart, there was pride in his heart, which led to lack of respect and everything else. So, in closing, I know I'm 5 minutes over, and again, thank you for your patience. In closing, a lesson from this specific verse in the context of Daksha's sacrifice, the Yajna, and everything that ensued. I think it is important for us to take a moment to reflect on this, step back and say, how does this apply to me? What am I going to be doing differently? What can I do differently? I know it's a journey. I may not be able to go from 0 to 100 in a second, but at least what can I attempt to start thinking about, contemplating on, and practicing so that I can do it is that we need to make every moment of our life, everything that we do, try to remember Krishna, number one. Two, try and offer that back to Krishna, right? We have to think of our life as a yajna itself, as a sacrifice itself. How can I make my body the altar? How can I make the words the mantras? How can I make my work as an offering? How can I use my intelligence as the priest? And I'm trying to draw parallels with what's happening in Daksha's yajna, the things that are there. How can I make my heart the sacrificial arena? This is it's very profound, it's very deep, but take a moment to reflect on that and see what is it that we can do. Maybe we cannot do everything. Maybe we can touch on some of these, even the ones that we can pick on. we can try, but at least even that attempt in itself is so purifying, it is so elevating, it's so uplifting. So this is for me, this is for all of us. And again, thank you so much for being a part of, today's discussion. I hope it provided a little deeper elaboration in terms of things that we could do better and improve ourselves so that, we can get closer to Krishna and please Krishna. That's the ultimate goal. We need to be able to please Krishna. So, with that, let's see if there's any questions, any discussion that we can have.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Vali Mataji.
Namaste, Dandavat Pranam.
Anutras.
Very, very wonderful class. You are touching every point, and whenever you take, I'm just realizing, yes, it is always there. The concept is bhakti, devotion is there in everything, right? Whether the question of Pandavas and Draupadi or the Sankirtanajna, mainly what you say is always not only in this purport, in many purports we go through that one, right? For Kali Yuga, it is only Sankirtanajna. And only yesterday I felt that also because we had that sidewalk kirtan going on near river walk festival. And it was so, so beautiful. And as you said, that's the place where we can focus only on the japa, forgetting our surroundings. And also, you said even if you do the yajna, they are focusing more on the pictures and all these things, right? And not focusing on the main item. Even if we do the yajna, I'm a little scared with all those itemized things, as you said, Prabhuji, each item. We don't get those items perfectly right now. And when you say the yajna pashu also, right? That is so scary. Yajna, and for every sacrifice, if we have to do it perfectly in a right way, that we need that pashu also, right? Yajna pashu. So that is not going to happen in Kali Yuga anyways. So no yajna will be perfect, and unless we do it completely, it won't fructify also.
Very
So,
true. Very true, Mataji. In fact,
yeah.
Prabhupada also says that, there are no qualified brahmanas to perform the yajnas
Mhm.
perfectly.
Yeah.
So that is so the best thing to do we can, best we can do is really, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has been so kind that he's given us the Maha Mantra. That's it.
Mhm. Yeah. Japa yajna, and also you said another thing in the lecture. There is a question like we are not able to focus, or even if we are doing, we are not there. So I remember the story of the gopis, because in the Bhagavatam class we are doing the 10th canto Rasakriyadhyaya. For the gopis who already who could go with Krishna after listening to the flute, right? They can go leave their homes and husbands and everything. But those people who can't go, so there are so many slokas on those people only then who already went left and went. So even if we can't do, if we can't go also, we can connect Krishna with the mind. As you said, he is watching us all the time. You said sometimes he is playing with us. He is always playing with me, Prabhuji. That's what I can say. Not sometimes, it is happening all the time.
All of us, Madhuri. Very mischievous. Yes,
Yeah, and
very
he will be
mischievous.
there watching every second, every minute, every flash that goes through our mind. He'll be there watching and what we are thinking. So it doesn't need to be right there where the place is, and it doesn't uh, happen. Even if we sit at home and close our eyes, we can see and chant, right? So this japa yajna can be done on the streets like yesterday, and also in the home, where we can be very peaceful and
Correct.
keep our mind steadily. So that is a wonderful. Yeah, it is a long class, but I didn't even realize that it is more than an hour now. Hare Krishna,
Sorry. Thank you
Prabhuji.
so much for your patience
Hare
and thank you for bearing with
Krishna. Yeah,
me.
because the Shravanam, we need to do the daily Shravanam, right? You are helping us with that, Prabhuji. That's what I can say.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
together with reading, chanting, we have to do the Shravanam also. That is the first step for the devotion service. So, Hare Krishna. Sometimes I don't see Sunday speakers, so I miss that 1 hour part in my schedule.
That's my service to my spiritual master and for myself, my purification as well, because I'm so fallen. But thank you so much, Mataji. We get so caught up otherwise in life.
Yeah,
So
no.
this basically is like a checkpoint. It just stops.
Mainly the
It's the pause
weekends
button.
are the place everyone wants our time. Yeah,
Right.
everyone is looking for that time and the
Yes.
holiday time. Yeah. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. Have a wonderful week ahead. Hare
Yeah.
Krishna.
Hare
So with that, I will end the meeting. Thank you again. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo
Krishna.
namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granth Maharaj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.